everybody. Now this is a topic that I promised to talk about because people were saying to me, what's this whole thing with the age of Pisces? When did we go into the age of Pisces? When are we really going into the age of Aquarius? And I said that I would talk about 5 men who were born just before the start of the age of Pisces, who had incredible influence over how the age of Pisces unfolded in terms of social anthropology, culture, religion, etc. So we're going to talk about those 5 men. Now, usually an age lasts 2,500 years. A lot of people say the age of Pisces began maybe around 200 to 150 BC. And I think it probably began a little bit earlier than that, because these men were born around 500 BC. All 5 of them were born in that period. And right now, I think we are on the verge of going into the age of Aquarius, particularly signified by this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius. Now, people talk a lot about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Just a note, and I did cover this before when I did my Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius and talked about how it relates so clearly to the Agenda 21. People always say, oh, we're having this great conjunction, Jupiter-Saturn, but a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction happens every 12 years, about. Or every 20 years, should I say, about. So it's not really that significant in terms of that, because every 20 years, what huge leaps forward do we take every 20 years? What is very significant about this one is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions usually reoccur in the same element. So for 240 years, they've been reoccurring in Earth. But now they're going into air. So we're going into a new 240-year period where they reoccur in air. So it's a different theme. And it's a much more theme compatible with the age of Aquarius, the dawning of the age of Aquarius. So let's talk about those men. So around 500 BC, 5 men were born who set the foundation stones to the creation of spiritual, cultural values on all 5 continents, which has lasted 2,500 years. The time period of an age, the age of Pisces. So who are these 5 men who influenced the age of Pisces and who were born just on the cusp as you were leaving age of Aries and going into age of Pisces? Just a note that Carl Jaspers, he calls this the Axios age, i.e. the age at which human history turned. And don't you all think that we are at a turning point or a crossroads right now in humanity? We'll come to that just now, but then he said the Axios age, the beginning of the age of Pisces, when human civilization turned, and now we had another turning point as we enter the age of Aquarius. So who were these men? Okay, I've been promising to say, I know you guys are wondering, oh God, who the hell were these people? But anyhow, in the 6th century BC, Zoroaster was born. Now, of course, Zoroaster, you don't hear a lot about Zoroastrianism as in terms of a religion now, but it was hugely influential in the Persian Empire, really shaped the thinking in that area of the world. Then there was Buddha, who was born around 567 BC, died 487 BC. Confucius, of course, very influential over that side of the world, Chinese side of the world, born 551, died 479 BC. Then we have Pythagoras, who was a contemporary of Buddha, another philosopher greatly influenced mathematics. And then we have Jupiter Isaiah. Now, who was he? He appointed as Yahweh's announced king, Cyrus II, who was the founder of the Persian Empire. So again, a nod to the Persian Empire. And he freed the Israelites from Babylonian captivity. So again, I talked in another video about Nebuchadnezzar, who was the leader in Babylon, the final leader of Babylon before the collapse. And here we see at this, Nebuchadnezzar was at the end of the age of Aries, going into the age of Pisces. Here we see about this figure, Jupiter Isaiah, coming forth at the end of the beginning of the age of Pisces to influence him. Just a little bit more on who he was. So Isaiah was one of the most popular works among the Jews in the Second Temple period, which ran from 515 BC to 70 CE. And in Christian circles, he was held in such regard as to be called the 5th Gospel. That's the Gospel of Isaiah. And its influence extends way beyond Christianity. It extends to English literature, to Western culture in general, and from the even as depicted in the libretto of Handel's Messiah, to a host of everyday phrases such as swords into plowshares and voice in the wilderness. These are kind of quotes associated with the book of Isaiah. And the Deutero-Assyrian part of the book describes how God will make Jerusalem the center of his worldwide rule through a royal savior, a Messiah. So therefore we're forecasting the birth of Jesus Christ, which would have been about 500 years later, who will destroy the oppressor Babylon. They also talk about the Messiah from the Persian king, Cyrus the Great, who is merely the agent who brings about Yahweh's kingship. So there we have these 5 figures who launch onto the scene, and one influences the kind of Judeo-Christian outlook, the other influencing Eastern outlook, the Middle Eastern outlook, and Pythagoras, of course, huge influence on the philosophical, mathematical, and the astrological side of things. Now, how do we relate it today? Well, now we're getting to the end of the Age of Pisces, getting ready to go into the Age of Aquarius, and we have some more influential figures. Okay, we have major scientific advancements, as talked about by Klaus Schwab. We're hearing about the Great Reset, but we are looking, and what is Klaus Schwab talking about? He's talking about the fusion of our biological identity, our digital identity, our physical identity, all being wrapped into one. We've got genetically modified food. We've got all this geoengineering that's happening in the atmosphere. We've got CRISPR, which is being used for the manipulation of the genome. Man has begun to play God. And as Linda Goodman said about the collapse of Atlantis, which happened time unknown, that when man has scientific advancement without spiritual understanding, there's only one result, and that is a giant cataclysm, an apocalypse. And so while we stand at the brink of a huge Great Reset, which is just another way of what Mao said about a great leap forward in terms of scientific advancement, we also stand at the brink of our destruction, because there is no doubt that the people who are pushing for all these things lack the relevant spiritual understanding. Well, they may think they have spiritual understanding because they understand the symbols and they understand Aleister Crowley, but that, I don't think that really cuts it. So we're at a crossroads again, aren't we, as we launch into the Age of Aquarius. And what is Aquarius about? One of the huge things is about technology. Now, when you watch the movie, the theatre production Hairspray, this is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. It depicts the whole hippie side of Aquarius. But the other side of Aquarius is communism, communitarianism, technology. And remember that Aquarius's co-ruler is Saturn, the controlling planet, all about structure, the hierarchy, us versus them. You know, this pyramid power structure is very much Saturn. So we have the transhumanism agenda. We have them wanting to manipulate our DNA, turn us into cyborgs, merge man with machine. It's mind-boggling we're even talking about this. Some of it is so ridiculous. I've talked about weather control, genetically modified food. Now they're trying to move us as a human species. We've always been meat eaters. Now they're trying to move us towards becoming vegans. I don't think human beings are designed to be vegans. Personally, I have been mainly eating vegan food for a long time, but I don't think, it's only because I'm trying to stay away from animals fed on genetically modified food, not because I think it's ideal that we don't eat meat, but you see, they are just changing our whole makeup into something else. Then we have the G, can't say the name on here, you know, and who knows how that's going to affect us, because the millimeter rays do have an effect on our mitochondrion, and our mitochondrion carries our genetic inheritance. It contains the information about our evolution, how we have evolved. And so if they're even recoding the part of our cells which contain our history, our evolutionary history, what is that really going to mean for us going forward? You've got all this nonsense about hydrogel and how that could be incorporated into our body to be almost a monitoring system. We hear stories now that there's nanotech in the food. There's nanotech being sprayed out into the atmosphere. So we are slowly being evolved without ourselves even knowing about it by what we consume and what we breathe in. And Klaus Schwab even talks about these nanotech particles forming colonies in our body, which can slowly transform our makeup. Dare we even go there and think about this? It's unimaginable. And it's all being done without us knowing a damn thing about it. Oh, yes, we are beginning to find out as we read about the Great Reset, but a huge amount of people in total denial about it. So we have these out of control technocrats who bear absolutely no accountability. We have puppet governments who just going along with it because they probably are having the attitude of, well, if we go along with it, we'll be the last, or well, maybe we'll be in on it. You know, it's like siding with the school bully. Well, if we side with the bully, they won't come after us. But we know that they're going after pretty much everybody, especially these underlings who think falsely that they're going to be at the head table at the banquet. Well, they're not going to be at any table at the banquet, I can assure them. Just interestingly, apparently this Jeff Bezos, who is, well, now the richest man by a long shot because of the way Amazon has grown over this whole lockdown period, and he has an interest in submarines. Now he's been using submarines to trawl the bottom of the ocean. Now what on earth is he doing there? Looking for remnants of Atlantis? Because I strongly believe that a lot of these advances that we have in technology are not so much that they've been invented, but they've almost been rediscovered. Remember what Linda Goodman said about Atlantis? Huge leaps forward scientifically without coinciding spiritual leap forward always leads to disaster. Yeah, maybe that's where they're discovering all the extra knowledge. Just want to end in 2 points that I saw. Boko Haram murdering a lot of farmers in Nigeria, and we know what's happening with the farmers in South Africa. I think that again plays into this theme that they're almost trying to push farming aside and steer the human race towards eating maybe not only genetically modified food, but 3D printed food. You've heard all the crazy ideas that Bill Gates has about the way he wants to recreate food. And then a very interesting story going on in Chile. I think a lot of these things are being trialed in third world countries, and they see how it goes. Not that Chile at all is third world, but it's kind of off the radar. Not a lot of people are focused on what's happening there, so it's a great testing ground for them to try some of their more extreme lockdown processes and whatever to be rolled out. And they are changing the constitution in Chile to be far more easily melded into something globalist. So there's a big attack on constitutions. We can see that that's definitely going to happen in America. You can see in all these states the constitution isn't even being followed now in terms of voting. Judges aren't even paying attention. They don't even care when the constitution is breached. There we have in Chile changing the constitution just so that they can usher in the world government that much easier. All part of the same system. So everything that we've known, everything that we've worked towards, the time of Pythagoras Greece with the birth of democracy as well in ancient Greece. Now we're moving forward to something else where democracy disappearing, our very sense of ourselves as human beings disappearing. Of course, I didn't even mention the whole transgender thing with our whole concept of ourselves as male and female, mother and father, the concept of the family, all disappearing, all as part of this great reset. So as you can see, we are at a crossroads, an even more dramatic crossroads than we were at the beginning of the Age of Pisces. So if those 5 men shaped the Age of Pisces, which 5 men are shaping the Age of Aquarius? Well, certainly I would put Marx and Mao in there, even though they were born a little bit before. And then we've moved on and we've got, I wouldn't even say the Gates and the Schwabs are that significant. They just key players. We don't really know the names of the people who are ultimately behind the philosophy that we are being shoved into at the moment. Can we resist, or is it almost inevitable? Either way, we are going into something that's going to be very, very different from what we have had the past 2,500 years. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Had quite a lot to say recently because, boy, things have speeded up. Their foot is on, they've got pedal to the metal, these globalists. Plenty to talk about all the time. Thanks for joining me, and I will pop this over on my BitChute channel as well. And by the way, there's something from the other day on BitChute that I did not post to YouTube. Please check it out.